Show you how to make.
In a bombshell report from the New York Times, they admit not only did Joe Biden have all of these pardons signed by AutoPen, but he actually wasn't even aware of some of them. Now, the funny thing is the headline is Biden says he approved of these. Considering their reporting that he didn't know about some of them and that the aides just took it upon themselves to go do this, well, it says that's it right there. How could these pardons be valid if the only one that actually appears to have been signed is the pardoning of Hunter Biden? Rand Paul has said that he is reissuing his criminal referral for Dr. Fauci. You've got the J6 committee. You've got Dr. Fauci. You've got Biden's family. All of those pardons in question, not to mention all of the other individuals, because there was a big pardon that all the presidents do. These are people in prison you probably never even heard of. All of them now in question. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we got some other really big stories. I don't know how else to say this because, guys, on this show, I often refrain and I argue as hard as possible that people are not committing treason. They say, oh, that Democrat did this or that lawyer committed treason. And I'm like, no, treason is adhering to the enemies of the United States. What most people are referring to with like Comey and these investigations is sedition, trying to undermine or overthrow the government. Treason is when you betray your country to foreign individuals, to enemies of the United States. Mayor Karen Bass has announced that she will be partnering with private individuals to give money to illegal immigrants that are here illegally and that are currently trying to evade federal law enforcement. Now, Trump has already declared an invasion. He has targeted these marijuana farms. There's concerns about child slave labor. They recovered, I think it might be either 14 or 20 child slaves working on these farms. Trump saying, we're going to send in law enforcement and shut this down. Strong likelihood that there is an overlap between these narco gangs, these cartels. And now we're hearing Karen Bass says she's going to give them cash, quite literally to the letter of the law. That is treason. And I don't say that lightly, but I don't have another word for it. When Donald Trump, the president of the United States, declares an invasion and says, these people are an invasive force on our country, we are going to start deporting these narco gangs, MS-13, et cetera. This is the first step over the line where a politician is providing funding and resources to individuals by which Trump has already said we are being invaded. So tell me what you think that means. But I'm gonna read the law to you, and I think this is the first step of the line of where we can actually say that is treasonous. This is an insane thing to be seeing, but they are pushing that line. We've also got more on the Epstein story because apparently Lara Trump says there are more Epstein documents they're going to release. So this whole story is nuts. Charlie Kirk put out a video saying, you know what, I'm going to trust my friends in government on this one. And everybody just went, huh? This is the Epstein story. What? But there's an interesting point to be made in all of this, which we'll get into, and it should be interesting nonetheless. Before we do, my friends, we got a great sponsor. It is Beam. Go to, Lisa, did you book them at this time on purpose? And she's like, it was a coincidence. You actually testified on AutoPen use.
I did. Yeah.
Into Congress.
My organization, Power of the Future, was doing it on the environmental executive orders because obviously we fight environmental groups. And so I testified a couple of weeks ago on the AutoPen use. And when we get into the conversation, I got a lot to say.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited.
Shane's hanging out.
I'm looking forward to talking about the AutoPen. I just found out it was like a giant robot. Thought it was a DocuSign app. Everyone should look it up. But yeah, Shane Cashman here, host of Inverted World Live. I'll be leaving here around 9:30 tonight to go host my show at 10 o'clock on Rumble and YouTube. 10 o'clock to midnight. Phone lines will be open. We'll take your phone calls if you have any strange stories you want to share with us. And we'll be talking about a military jet that was hit by a UFO and declassified documents from 2023 that have just been released. A lot.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. I am Alad Eliyahu, White House correspondent and field reporter here at Timcast. Let's get into the news.
I just want to mention one quick thing, too, for those watching live on YouTube. They just launched that top fans feature, which apparently is the more you super chat and post, the more bonuses you get. And then it gives you a crown if you're into that kind of thing. I thought it was funny. I'm excited we got it. It looks cool. We'll see what happens. But, we also got our Rumble rants and our members-only exclusive Rumble uncensored show at 10 o'clock. Don't want to miss it. Let's jump into the news. We got this from the New York Times. Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded with AutoPen. Whew. I was worried there for a minute. You know, I thought for a second that Biden didn't actually do it. Oh, let me actually scroll down more than halfway through the story to find this. Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people. He and aides confirmed. Rather, after extensive discussion with different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in sentence. Even after Mr. Biden made the decision, one former aide said, the Bureau of Prisons kept providing additional information about specific inmates, resulting in small changes to the list. Rather than ask Mr. Biden to keep signing revised versions, his staff waited and then ran the final version through the AutoPen, which they saw as routine. So they buried that halfway down. But there's a lot more. There's one. Let me see if I can get this one. This one's massive. This is the actual smoking gun. Mr. Biden completed the list of high-profile clemency decisions over 2 meetings, the emails show. One on January 18th included Mr. Zients, I don't know if is that how you pronounce it, Mr. Siskel, another aide, Bruce Reed. Another on the evening of January 19th, his final night as president, was with Mr. Siskel. They say the emails show that Mr. Biden added the preemptive pardons for his family at the January 19th meeting. They also suggest that he changed some of his thinking, but there's more. The emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary of Mr. Biden's decision at that meeting to an assistant to Mr. Zients, copying Mr. Siskel at 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded it to Mr. Reed and Mr. Zients, asking for their approval, and then sent a final version to Ms. Feldman, copying many meeting participants and aides at 10:28. 3 minutes later, Zients hit reply all and wrote, I approve the use of the AutoPen for the execution of all of the following pardons. That means between 10:03, 10:28, and then 3 minutes later, 10:31, there was no possible time for this staffer to go to Joe Biden and say, are these pardons confirmed? In fact, this guy who I've never heard of, Mr. Zients, approved pardons to the staff who used the AutoPen. Void. They should all be void. I don't know how this is crazy. The president can't delegate away pardon powers, at least as far as I know.
Yeah,
Biden's asleep by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Biden was definitely not awake at 10:48 p.m., 10:38.
Now, here's the big hammer. The lead of the story that should have been the first sentence. Mr. Biden granted Hunter Biden a full pardon in December 2024. It was the only clemency warrant in that period that Mr. Biden signed with his own hand.
Wow.
That's the lead story. Aides confirm Biden did not sign off on the individual pardons.
It's evil. I'm curious if he did the pardon with the AutoPen for the judge who was getting kickbacks for Cash for Kids. You know about that story?
Yeah,
The guy in Pennsylvania?
yeah.
It's an insane story that guy got pardoned as well, but that's what they do at the end, just like Bill Clinton pardoning Weather Underground terrorists.
I mean, Trump did it.
Yeah, I know. I think it should be
pardoned like that rapper.
totally banned. Yeah.
We were like, what about Snowden or like Ross
Assange.
Ulbricht or Assange?
Yeah.
Yeah. So President Trump has said many times, whoever was controlling the AutoPen, that's who the president was. So according to those emails back and forth, Mr. Zients was the acting president. Because if he has the authority to say, I approve this, let's whip out the AutoPen, then you've approved the pardon. I was doing some quick math, and I had to Google this one. There are 84,000 seconds in a day. All right. So that was my starting point. 84,000 seconds in a day. On that one day, he pardoned 1,500 people. If he gave every one of those people 1 minute of time, that's 90,000 seconds. So, and you cannot physically spend an entire day looking through those. So they didn't even get 1 minute. So if I have to if I'm president, they're like, you should pardon Tim Pool. Let me see his file, right? Tim Pool deserves at least a minute. No, the American people deserve at least a minute of me as president reviewing whether or not I give Tim Pool a pardon. He didn't even get that. 1,500 people were just freaking run through the machine, and someone else just added their names to that. And that is such a violation of everything we hold sacred that you're absolutely right. They are all null and void. And now those who are null and void are also should return to jail. And if you were not in jail and you got one of the preemptive pardons, well, now you're up for criminal prosecution.
You know, I feel bad for there's at least some people who the pardons are probably not that big a deal. Maybe there's some like nonviolent offender and they were facing 10 years and Biden reduced it to time served after like 6. And it's like, well, they committed a crime, they're bad, but you know, this is whatever. And now it's like, you might have to go back.
Yeah.
The violent offenders that get pardons, I'm just like, send them back anyway.
Yeah,
I agree.
But imagine finding out that your pardon, which was promised, is being voided because Joe Biden was sleeping.
Because Joe Biden didn't pardon you. Mr. Zients pardoned you.
There was no Joe Biden.
He doesn't have
There was no Joe Biden.
So just so we have a little bit more background, this Jeff Zients guy, he's actually Joe Biden's chief of staff. He was for 2 years, and he's held multiple different positions through the Obama and then earlier in the Joe Biden administration. The reason that it's important that you go through each individual case is because you don't actually know, like, there are details in each specific crime that lead to different things. One of the more outlandish people that was granted clemency was the infamous Kids for Cash judge, this guy named, who was it? Michael Conahan. And he was this guy in one of the states who was getting kickbacks from jail. So he was encouraged to send more kids to jail at the time. So he gave out these outrageous sentences. So like things like this fall through the crack as a result of this. I think it's also fascinating how this is, for a Democrat, pretty much political malpractice. Like the Trump administration right now is struggling with a specific story. Let's not mention it this soon in the episode. But like while the Trump administration is struggling with that, this is the lead story for the New York Times. So it's like, Joe Biden, you're too dumb to keep your mouth shut for like the Democrats' sake, because now this is only red meat for the MAGA base, which Trump is struggling to, keep fully on his side. So this story is a perfect distraction for that, and it isn't going anywhere. This is a story that the president was talking about for a long time. And I also will mention, because I only today really learned what the auto pen literally was, because Shane mentioned something and told me to look it up. I thought it was DocuSign. I use DocuSign for all of my document signing needs, and it's like this automatic thing online where I just click one button and it writes my signature. No, this is like a physical contraption that moves with the strokes similar to
It's
what
a
your
little
hand is
arm,
supposed to do.
and it moves.
It looks like Joe Biden.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up.
But like, why the timing is so fascinating. Obviously, the former president has an ego, and he was trying to defend his legacy right now. That's
Dude, can I buy this?
being slammed.
We should get one.
You can buy one, sure.
Yeah, it's like a 1970s CNC.
But this is this is a process crime, because this is kept in a room under lock and key, and people need to go in, and people need to get the paper, and there are a lot of bad actors in this process, and they are all to a certain extent culpable. And you can't say, well, I was just following orders. That doesn't fly anymore.
I just wanted to follow up on this Cash for Kids judge that I mentioned, Kids for Cash judge that I mentioned, because I do feel like it was significant. Conahan's inclusion sparked harsh blowback, him being included, being given clemency. Even Pennsylvania Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro criticized Biden for getting it absolutely wrong. He said it created a lot of pain here in North Pennsylvania. So this guy was convicted in 2011 of funneling juveniles to a for-profit detention center in exchange for more than $2 million in kickbacks. He was sentenced to more than 17 years in prison. Many people would say that's not enough, but the issue again with not reviewing closely is that scumbags like
Mr.
this fall
Ziets,
through the
Mr.
cracks.
America, I would like to introduce you to your president, circa 2021-25. There you go.
We
go,
started
Watch.
investigating the auto pen stuff because there were so many climate executive orders.
Wait, it's drawing a butt. What is it drawing? Anyway, continue.
There were so many climate executive orders that just came out with a signature, and that we never saw the president talk about it. So probably the most egregious one was when Biden's auto pen said that we were banning the sale and the export of liquid natural gas. And so obviously in the fossil fuel world, it was like, whoa. The president's banning liquid natural gas? Yep, banned. Starting in January, it was banned. And if you remember, Mike Johnson, as Speaker of the House, had an interesting exchange. He said, I was talking to the president, and I asked him, why did you ban LNG? And he said, I didn't do that. And he was like, yeah, Mr. President, you did. And at the time, that was understood as, wow, Biden is in such bad shape, he doesn't even remember. But then we realized as an organization, we were like, oh, no, he didn't even know he did it. Like the crazy Greens in the White House were like, let's ban LNG. And they were like, damn, here's the auto pen. They put it through. So we came up with a whole series of executive orders on climate, but banning drilling in the Arctic, banning drilling in the outer continental shelf, that we were like, Biden never spoke about this in first person. Now, not everyone makes as big gestures as President Trump, right? He holds them up and everyone sees. But to have the president ban the sale of natural gas and never get asked about it, never talk about it, never get questioned by the press, we were like, this guy doesn't know what the hell's happening.
So there was a lot of those happening quickly, and then you were like, we should look into this?
We found 8 in particular that are huge and that bankrupted people's companies, right? If you're selling natural gas and the White House announces it's now illegal to sell it, to export it, you're like, well, there goes the business. We mortgaged the house. Sorry, Mom, we're out of it. Lives lives were ruined over this.
Terrible.
And all of our European allies bought Russian gas because we stopped selling American. So they were like, who can be the mediator for Russian natural gas? The Turks, which again, they're part of NATO. Turkey was like, yeah, we'll be the mediator. We'll buy it from Russia and we'll sell it to France and Germany and Italy. So it created hell.
Of course.
Well, let's just add this to the mix. Rand Paul saying, today I will reissue my criminal referral
let's clap
for
that
Anthony
up. Let's
Fauci to Trump DOJ. So I want to read this portion, which is, this is from the New York Times story. It says, at the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room of the White House residence, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such decisions, according to people familiar with the matter. The emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft of a summary to Mr. Biden's decisions at that meeting to an assistant to Mr. Zients. So, like, this is convoluted. An aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft of purportedly Mr. Biden's decisions to an assistant to Mr. Zients. Okay, so these are two assistants talking to each other, copying Mr. Siskel at 10:03. The assistant forwarded to Mr. Reed and Mr. Zients asking for their approval, and then sent a final version to Ms. Feldman. Feldman was the one who ran them through the AutoPen, copying many participants. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all and wrote, I approve the use of AutoPen for the execution of all the following pardons. This is why Rand Paul is saying Fauci for jail. Not the full reason is because Fauci lied to Congress, but he's saying this is why the belief now is, and this is a senator saying this, the pardons are void.
Yeah. They have to
Lock
be
them
void.
up.
They have to be void because Joe Biden didn't pardon them. He pardoned the process. And that's not the same as saying, I pardon you, right? Like I will come up with a structure. That's not how, this is where it's going to go to the courts. Eventually, everything else goes to the damn courts. I assume this will get litigated to a certain point. But otherwise, what is the role of the president if it can be delegated to the staffers? Then we don't have a president. We have a figurehead. Right? And the
Executive-
staffers do everything.
Wouldn't be the first time.
I think AutoPen is clearly unconstitutional and should be banned.
No, it should be totally fine for like happy 7th birthday to Peter and Marcia. Like that is allowed. Like AutoPen to sign Merry
Let's
Christmas.
ban that too.
No.
But that's what it's
I get
supposed to be
you.
used for.
That's a dick move.
That's what it's supposed to be used
Imagine,
for.
I still think it's a dick move. So fine, I guess it's allowed. But could you imagine if it's like your birthday and then you get a letter and it's like a signature and you're like, oh, wow, thanks, Tim. And then someone comes and like, imagine then someone came to me and said, Tim, you know that card you sent to Daniel for his birthday? And I go, I didn't send him a card for his birthday. That's exactly what happened with Joe Biden. Oh, how many times did that happen?
And that's totally fine when you get 40,000 emails a day saying, can you send a letter to my mom for her birthday? Of course, President Trump or President Biden is not going to sign.
Like that means my
40,000
Trump
birthday
autograph
cards.
stuff's not real?
But a lot, well, that's
Those
why a
might
real
be.
autograph is real. And that's the problem. Like if you auto-pen Willie Mays' signature, this baseball is worth nothing.
We take them all to Pawn Stars now
Right.
to get these verified.
Yeah. So then it's an auto. I mean, there's validity, there's power in the signature, and that's why you can't forge it.
That actually is funny. Like now that there's this AutoPen scandal, someone might go to Pawn Stars and be like, I have this photo of, Joe Biden with Richard Nixon signed by Joe Biden. I'm like,
Yeah.
was it?
So
Was it really?
I think one of the problems that the Trump administration ran into with another story was over-promising and under-delivering, and the political cynic in me suggests that the same thing is going to be happening here. I don't suspect that anybody who actually received a pardon is going to have it withdrawn or whatnot. I don't actually think that Fauci is going to face justice in any, real
hope
way.
you're wrong,
So, like,
Rod.
while the optimist in me, I mean, no, I'm purely cynical. I don't think that this is actually going anywhere, and I feel like we're being, this is just a story to help calm the base down.
I hope you're
I know
wrong.
this is
I hope
coming
you're
from the
wrong, but I think
Times.
so.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying over the Epstein stuff?
I'm saying they overpromised and underdelivered for the Epstein stuff, and they could learn from that by not overpromising and underdelivering in the case here with the pardons.
Real quick. Can you name a story where the Republicans under promised and overperformed?
No, I mean, it's in the politician's nature to, but I mean, it's really biting the administration in a recent story, in the Epstein case story. And now I think it's going to bite them when none of this comes to fruition in the future, because again, I don't think Fauci's going to face any real justice.
Agreed. But I don't think the New York Times wrote this to appease the base of Trump. I do think there's a catastrophe, a crisis in the Epstein story, for which there's no way they make it go away, and it's really silly now. I think what was it? Charlie Kirk was saying, what did he talk to Trump? Is that what happened?
Let's put an allegedly in there.
Yeah.
Allegedly,
Talked to his friends in the
President
White House.
gave him a phone call and was upset, especially with how much talk of Epstein was going on at
don't know if
the
he said Trump,
TPUSA
though.
summit.
We'll get into the. I don't want to go too hard on the Epstein stuff now because we do have some stories to pull up there. The New York Times clearly wrote this story to cover up for Biden. That's why the headline of the story is Biden says he signed off on these pardons. Because when you actually go through it, the New York Times, this is what they do. They're front loading the story. So your average person sees the headline, reads the first paragraph and says, so Biden approved it. But if you actually read the whole way through, you're like, wait a minute. Now, just real quick, why would the New York Times write their story this way? Instead of just giving me a succinct one paragraph intro, Republicans are investigating the pardons that Joe Biden issued because they're arguing that AutoPen is illegitimate. Aides and staffers ran these pardons through AutoPen without Joe Biden's approval. End of story. The New York Times wrote this to cover for Democrats, not to shift the narrative off of. I don't think the New York Times was like, let's collude to help Trump.
To turn it around on Trump at some point with his auto pen use,
Yeah.
If there was, and I believe there probably was.
There was, but I think this term Trump has not used it
Not this term.
because he's signing everything with those big markers.
Except for birthday cards and Christmas cards. But my only hope on the Fauci thing is I think Senator Rand Paul has such personal animus for him that I think the Trump administration separately, you may be right, like they may overpromise and underdeliver. But I think Senator Rand Paul has such they had such nasty exchanges, and he's a doctor. He felt like he was questioned as a doctor. So I'm kind of hoping Rand Paul is like a pit bull with this and just goes after it nonstop.
I think he has every reason to try to get back into the good graces of the MAGA folk because he voted against the president's big, beautiful bill and has been getting a lot of heat from that. Maybe I just look at politics in a much more cynical way. I think this definitely would help him because he's posturing on an issue that he aligns with on the MAGA base. But this is the same guy who said he doesn't want to use the military on illegal immigrants to help ICE in any capacity. I think he's against mass migration and he's against the Trump agenda that he tried to pass in Congress.
But the Fauci thing is one of the biggest stories that we need major accountability for.
Sure.
Like
and if by accountability...
He shut down the country.
Donald
worked
Trump
on gain of function
Donald
in
Trump
Wuhan.
shut down he was the president.
Donald Trump's got other issues I want to investigate.
Trump shut down.
Warp
Trump
speed.
proposed the shutdown for 2 weeks. The states shut down each of their individual states. Some were open, some were closed.
And Fauci was the figurehead of the destruction.
Fauci was advising it, and Fauci was working on gain of function research, which he lied about to Congress, to the Senate. That's why Rand Paul's saying lock him up because he lied.
Yeah.
And Newsweek headline. They tried to be very nice when they said he was like, what do they say, untruthful comments made? It's like, sure.
And
he
then
was on the road,
NIH
though.
just changed the definition of gain of function, right? And they were like, well, we just changed it. So no, we weren't doing that. Look at our new definition on our new website, which was released a couple hours ago before I testified. So
Love how that works.
just always just change the names of everything,
All of these guys need to be brought to testify in front of Congress.
Yes.
The chief of staff and then all the people who are involved in these emails should all be dragged in front of Congress, and all this should happen before the midterms, so the Republicans will still have the majority when it happens.
I'm wondering, one of the things too, especially, which we'll get into in a little bit more, but how Democrats are just so pro Epstein release now. And I'm like, guys, the challenge I see now, because like we mentioned Charlie Kirk saying, I don't trust my friends on this one. It's like Democrats did not care at all under Biden. They were just not going to bring it up. And now that Trump promised to do it but isn't, they're acting like it's the biggest scandal ever.
Yeah.
I just don't believe them.
Of course not.
Well, I
Do
think the
trust him?
president put it succidently in one of his Truth Social posts where he said if there was anything damning related to MAGA or himself, the Biden and Merrick Garland would have, the Biden administration
Absolutely.
and Merrick Garland definitely would have released it. Why would they have held on to it? Anything relating to Trump, just because the president had some picture with Jeffrey Epstein is why I think Democrats are trying to advance it. I also think Democrats and leftists notice the fissure in MAGA as a result of this, and they will try to push and exploit this as much as they can. I think although there is some there to the Epstein story, I think every cynic, every person who's critical of the MAGA agenda will use it to try to, create more fissures and exploit that fissure.
Yeah, it's the same they do with Elon, right? As soon as they see something that is splitting the MAGA movement where people are taking sides, the Democrats pile on because they want to exacerbate that fissure. And so,
Well, Elon was disgusting about this. Elon was giving this more credence that the president allegedly had a business with Epstein that completely didn't exist. So it's like, even if somebody like Elon is willing to, throw mud on the president's name and slander him like that.
I got an idea. Can we find someone whose last name is Epstein? There was a guy on
A lot of them.
his name was Jeffrey R. Epstein, and someone quote tweeted him and said that R is holding up the weight of the world.
that's great.
It's like, if my last name was Epstein, because it's a common last name, I would create my top 10 newsworthy individuals of the week list, and that way I could tweet, here's who's on the Epstein list, and then just start putting people's names on. You can't sue you for defamation. You can
There's a famous Hollywood reporter, Kevin McCarthy, and when McCarthy became speaker, that was like the running joke that he'd be like, "Seriously, guys, wrong McCarthy." He's covering like Brad Pitt's newest movie, and he would say all this like "F you," like it was like, I'm not that Kevin McCarthy. So I could do that with the Jeffrey Epstein. Put out a casting call for a Jeffrey Epstein. He can sit right there.
Hey, we'll make a website, epsteinslist.org.
There's a politician
and
in New York.
It'll be like to find local services to help you out.
Yeah.
Someone just ran in New York with an Epstein name.
I've met other Daniel Turners. So that name's kind of boring as hell.
There's a lot of them.
So yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. Let's jump to this next story from Newsweek. Los Angeles to give cash assistance to immigrants impacted by Trump raids. I love immigrants impacted. Who is Trump targeting in these raids? Are they just immigrants, or are they perhaps a subcategory of immigrant?
Giving cash to illegals that invaded our country.
Newsweek says Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass announced a new initiative to provide direct cash assistance to immigrants impacted by the Trump admin's ongoing immigration raids. The funds will be distributed as cash cards valued at a couple $100 each and is expected to become available in the next week. They say President Trump has vowed to carry out the largest mass deportation in U.S. history. The GOP's flagship immigration policy under Trump is causing people to avoid going to work and fears over workplace raids. California has become one of the key battleground states for immigration. So hold on there a minute. So the cash assistance is intended for families directly impacted by the raids. Mayor Bass highlighted the example of a family that faced potential eviction after one of its primary earners was detained by immigration authorities. Was this individual perhaps legally detained under a warrant of some sort, perhaps for being an illegal immigrant? The program will be funded through private donations rather than city funds. Immigrant rights organizations, including the Coalition for Human Immigrant Rights in Los Angeles, will handle the distribution of cash cards. According to the mayor's office, the city will coordinate efforts between donors and distribution partners, though specific eligibility criteria have not yet been announced. They're going to say Bass likened the initiative to Angelino Cards program during the pandemic. The cash cards announced coincided with a new executive order signed by Bass directing all city departments to strengthen training and policies ensuring compliance with LA's sanctuary city law. Okay. Now, y'all know, I pointed this out at the beginning of the show, we've had many people come on the show and say treason. They say Comey committed treason because he called Trump a Russian. That's not treason. Sedition is when you try to undermine, overthrow, or obstruct the government. So what we saw with Trump being falsely charged and the Russiagate conspiracies and the false impeachments, that's seditious conspiracy. Individuals of this country seeking to undermine this country's government. Treason is defined as this. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. You want to pull this up? Is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but not less than $10,000, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. This is codified in U.S. law. So let me just ask the basic question. We'll start here. Trump invokes 18th century law declaring invasion by gangs to speed mass deportations. Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a sweeping wartime authority that allows the president broader leeway on policy and executive action to speed up mass deportations of people, potentially pushing his promised crackdown. This is from March 15th. Trump has federalized the National Guard in California because of riots, and he sent in the Marines to protect federal buildings as they were conducting immigration raids in L.A. Recently, the Trump administration raided several marijuana farms. Let me pull this one up. This is very important. Minors pot farms. I bet Pot Farm probably won't do it, but here we go from the BBC. Hey, the BBC is a source, right? Okay. Liberals are going to say it doesn't count. Minors among suspected illegal immigrants detained after clash at California farm. What kind of farm was it? It's a marijuana farm. You see, they keep omitting that. Now, hold on. Let me just ask the panel a basic